Desks. Remove the bottles, please. For the camera, it's very, very ugly. Luz, would you sit in the first rank, Luz, and please. يلا وسامر انت كمان اول صف. This is Lebanon. Please, no bottles on the desks. Thank you. And try not to bring coffees to the room here, please. Take care for your coffee, okay? Okay? Okay. Good morning again. I'm sure you enjoyed your 2 days in the north of Lebanon. We'll talk about it at 11 o'clock. Let me introduce you Mr. Laurent Aoun. I am really very pleased to introduce a very big friend of the Maronite Foundation. Mr. Laurent Aoun is a lawyer. He is board member in the Maronite League. He was with us at the board of trustees of the Maronite Foundation. He is the co-founder of many immigrants initiatives. He published many articles and studies about immigration and development. Please join me to welcome Mr. Laurent Aoun.
Good morning, everybody. I am very, very pleased to be with you in this holiday. Not holiday, holy day. I'm sure, I don't know if it's your first visits or you've been here before, but I'm sure that first when you came to Lebanon and you saw the restaurants, the streets, the houses, the standard of living of Lebanese, maybe you were confused. I mean, how you hear since you were born about some Lebanese security instability, economic instability, wars between 75 and 90s. I mean, how are these people living like that? How they have these new cars, you go to restaurants at night, it's full. Restaurants here are very expensive. You see very nice villas. And at the same time, you see the roads are awful, the infrastructure is not that much, there is a big contradiction. Actually, President Charles Hello, who is ex-president since tens of years, he asked himself this question, and he invited the ex-Holland finance minister to come to Lebanon and to see how are these people living like that. I mean, we don't have natural resources. We have, but we did not exploit it yet. We don't have big industries. Actually, these 2-3 years, we don't have even a lot of tourism from Arab countries. So President Charles Hello, he invited this expert to see and to study the Lebanese economy. And at that day, you know, the concept of immigration, its economic impact, it was not yet spread like now. So he came and he studied the economy, and after he went to President Hello and he told him, you know, President, we should not do anything, we should leave it like that. He told him, but I want to see how are these people living. He told him, it's Lebanese immigration. And I want to start from this point to tell you that Lebanese immigration has huge positive impact on Lebanese residents. It has a major positive impact on Lebanese residents. If you see any housewife in Lebanon driving a new car or putting diamonds in her hand, you can ask her. She will tell you, my husband, he works in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in Qatar. Or my father, he was in Brazil and he came back 20 years ago. Or, I mean, in every Lebanese family, it's always affiliated to somebody who is, for the time being, abroad or used to be abroad. If we want to do a summary for the relationship between the Lebanese immigration potential and our Lebanese economy, we can summarize it in three main channels. The main channel is to buy real estate. You know, when a Lebanese citizen travel abroad, when he first start to have some money, he likes always to buy a land in Lebanon. And you always say in Lebanon that in Lebanon من هن الشاري من عز البايع. So you know, many land, around 35-40% of Lebanese land are owned by Lebanese immigrants. The second channel is deposits in the bank. You know, we have bank secrecy here in Lebanon. We have a stable bank sector. Since the 90s, it's fully stable. We have good interest rates. So we have strong Lebanese banks. So Lebanese immigrants, they deposit a lot of their savings in the Lebanese banks. The third main channel is to educate relatives in Lebanon. You know, Lebanese immigrants, they always like to help the relatives in Lebanon to give them scholarship for universities, for schools, they help each other a lot. Actually, I would like to analyze these three channels. Let's talk about real estate first. Are Lebanese immigrants doing investment projects in these lands, or it's empty? My answer is that it's mostly empty, because they know that we will buy this land, the price will increase with time. We don't need to do project. While the Lebanese economy need projects. We need new projects, because new projects will create jobs, will let people stay in their homeland, not to migrate again. So the Lebanese economy will not have any benefit if the land is empty. Because when the land is empty and people are buying land, it means that there is speculation, because prices will be higher and higher. And when the prices will be higher, Lebanese residents won't have the chance to buy an apartment and get married and to do a family, you know. Lebanese apartments in Lebanon are one of the most expensive in the world. If you want to buy a 200 square meter apartment in Beirut, you have to pay at least $500,000, because there is a lot of demand on land. So about the first channel, the Lebanese economy is paying, you know, high price on it, while Lebanese residents are not taking the real advantage out of it. If you want to talk about bank deposits, for example, let's think, what is the government doing with this money? What was the government doing with this money? They are buying bonds. I mean, the immigrants, they put this money in the banks, and then the banks give it to the government as a loan. Why? Why do you think? why the government is taking money from the banks to cover its expenses and to do infrastructure. Okay, let's talk about infrastructure. Where are these mega infrastructure projects done? In the villages of immigrants? No, they are done in Beirut. You know, when you go to any bank and you put money in the bank, if you put $100, nobody will talk to you. If you put $100,000, you know, the front desk office, they will give you a coffee and they will smile to you. If you put $1 million, the branch manager will hug you and will kiss you when you enter to the branch. Why? Because you put the money. I want to ask here, you said the immigrants, you are sending $7 billion to Lebanon on yearly basis. $7 billion on yearly basis. Why we have no infrastructure in the rural areas in Lebanon, where most immigrants are coming from? This is not right, and this is not fair. If you want to talk about the third channel, which is higher education, I mean the Lebanese immigrants, they like to help their relatives in Lebanon to sponsor their education. This is very important, but this is very important when we have more jobs on the other hand, because if you have higher education and we don't have new jobs, what does it mean? It means emigration. For example, if we take, yesterday you were in Anubin, okay, a guy who lives in Anubin and who has no university degree, he may accept to work in agriculture, for example. Why not? But if this young guy who has a cousin or an uncle in the US or in Latin America and who sponsored his education, and he has now a master's from a good university, will he accept to work in agriculture in Anubin? No, he will not accept. That's why creating jobs, doing new investment projects through the Lebanese potential, it's very, very, very important. You know, for the time being, the Lebanese population are taking very good advantage from our diaspora. As I told you, they have nice cars and they go to restaurants and they spend money. But the Lebanese economy in itself is not taking good advantage. You know, and when the Lebanese economy is not taking good advantage, we don't have this stable and deep developmental relationship between Lebanon and abroad. So I think that our main mission and the main goal of this lecture is to make Lebanese economy. What can we do? What initiatives can we launch? What idea can we discuss with each other to let the whole Lebanese economy take advantage of Lebanese diaspora? To give you an idea about Lebanese potential overseas, heck, to know, you know, we always hear we have a huge potential abroad. Okay, very good. But what if you want to talk in concrete, what is the size of this opportunity? The size of potential can be summarized in between 7 to 8.5 billions of dollars sent to Lebanon yearly from abroad, which amount to around 25% of our GDP. 25% of our GDP is made from this $8 billion sent from overseas. To give you an idea, about this $8 billion, 50% of this $8 billion is sent from Arabic countries, from Lebanese working in Arabic countries. While, for example, in Brazil, where we have millions, 5-6 millions working in Brazil, they don't send money more than 2% of these remittances. Why? Why in Arabic countries, where we have 500,000 Lebanese only working there, they send $4 billion, and in Brazil, where we have millions and millions, they don't send anything. Why? Because they are disconnected. Because you are not communicating with them. We are not following them. We are not telling them that you are Lebanese. You should be proud of being Lebanese. You are heroes. We are not telling them, what does it mean that you are Lebanese? What does it mean? It means only that we eat tabbouleh and we dance dabke? Is immigration or in Lebanon? No. Being Lebanese is going to Anubin, where you were yesterday. Being Lebanese is, you know, you've been to Anubin yesterday. You know, the first printing institution was established in Anubin. And you know who brought it? Any idea? Sorry? Yes, exactly. There is one hero who was from a rich family, and he sold his land. He went to Italy, he bought it, and he came with it. And there was a ban from the Turkish Empire to bring anything like that to Lebanon. He took the risk, he hid it, since he is a priest, and he brought it by the boat, and then he took it to Anubin. You know, that's a problem. The people in Brazil, you know, we lost connection with them. That's why they are not sending money anymore. You know, they go, the first generation, it's still in contact with Lebanon, and after, with the second generation, with third generation, while in Lebanon there is no initiatives to communicate with them, we lose contact with them. And after 50 years, they think that Lebanon, it means tabbouleh and dabke. And I think that the main role of the Maronite Academy, which I'm proud to be the one who launched this idea and who founded this initiative, is to create communication with you guys, to create communication in a healthy way, in a fruitful way. You know, it's very important to come to Lebanon and to visit Lebanon, but it's important as well to come and to know what Lebanon means. What does it mean to be Lebanese, and why you should be proud of being Lebanese? And that's why 2% only from remittances are coming from Brazil. But if we can communicate with them and tell them what does it mean to be Lebanese, what are the main advantages of the banking sector? You know, can you imagine if the whole world will send money to Lebanon as these 500,000 Lebanese working in Arabic countries? You know, 500,000 Lebanese working in Arabic countries, they are sending $4 billion. We have around 10 million Lebanese immigrants overseas. Can you imagine if the whole diasporas are sending money the way are doing the Lebanese working in the Arabic countries? It will have a huge positive impact. You may think now, what can we do? How can we start? How can we start to tell Lebanese immigrants, don't leave your money empty. Do a project in it. Do an investment project in it. It's good to put your money in the banks, but move a small part of this money and do a small project in your village to create some few jobs. How can we tell them that it's important to help your relative to sponsor their education, but you should as well create the jobs, because if you don't create the jobs, they will emigrate. How? How can we stop this vicious circle? Actually, this is a big challenge. This is a big challenge not only for Lebanese diaspora, from diaspora all over the world, because diasporas, they have this feeling based on nostalgia. That's why they want to help their families. But they don't think a lot in a business way. Okay, how we can make concrete our nostalgia in a fruitful way, in a way where we can really, really help Lebanese citizens in working in Lebanon and building families in Lebanon and buying a house in Lebanon and live for good in Lebanon. Not helping them to go a step further to emigrate. No. This is the vicious circle we are living. The big potential from immigration are helping Lebanese immigrants indirectly and without meaning it. They are helping them to go a step further to leave the country. I would like to tell you that many countries where the impact of diaspora is around 10%, 15% of GDP. So government, they built institutions, special institutions, governmental institutions on how to take benefit in a fruitful way, in a scientific way from this potential. Now, I'm sorry to tell you that until now, we don't have a real and deep governmental policy on how to link Lebanese potential and local economy in a coherent policy to mainstream the Lebanese need with the Lebanese potentials. But it doesn't mean that we should wait, because Lebanon was always based on private and personal initiatives. This initiative here, it should be an official initiative, while it's a private initiative. Lebanese people, they are well known by doing always private initiatives, and that's how they succeeded. Actually, we have some positive experience that I think that we can based on. I tell you a small example in Der Janin, in Akkar area, in the north area. They had a big problem because they have very, very high-end quality of olive oil, and they were not able to sell it. Actually, myself, I met a very nice guy in France. While talking to him, he told me that he was the president of the Der Janin Immigrants Association in France. I told him, it's very good, yes. I told him, why you don't help your village to import the olive oil from Der Janin to France? Why you don't do that? Why you don't help Der Janin on what should they do to have the standard, the packaging? In Europe, there is a standard in packaging, in quality, in ingredients. Why you don't communicate with them? So he told me that it was a good idea. So I put them in contact together. The first year, half of the products will not be able to enter the market. Second year, it was well prepared, so the whole olive oil was able to be exported to France. Now, Darjeeling is exporting all its products, olive oil products, to France, because through Lebanese diaspora in France, through them, the Darjeeling olive oil was as well spread with French people, and they liked it. French people, they liked it, and they are now all asking about this specific virgin olive oil. Yourself, you can play, each one of you can play a very important role. If each one will talk, I'm sure that since you came here, you are all active in your communities. Each one of you can ask the clubs of the village where he is coming from in Lebanon, what products do you have? What products do you have, and how we can help you to import your products to our countries? I'll tell you, for example, the baklava. I'm sure you all like the baklava. So it's Lebanese sweets, Baklava shop owners, they were about to close their shops, Then they found that it would be a good idea to take advantage from the internet, from globalization, and to find a way to import baklava to Lebanese diaspora spread all around the world. And first it started through internet. And that's how Lebanese baklava industry now is flourishing again and again through Lebanese immigration abroad. Because through Lebanese immigration abroad, the foreigner as well, the Australian people and the US people and the Canadian people, they liked this kind of sweet. And they are now all asking about it. So instead of having 3 or 4 million clients for Lebanese baklava, they had 10 millions, because the Lebanese diaspora is count around between 8 and 10 millions. And now the clients of Lebanese baklava is hundreds of millions, because people all over the world, everybody now, they like baklava. Sorry? So I think that each one of you can play a similar role like that. Each one of you can play the role that the Lebanese Association in France did with Darjeeling. Actually, what you can do is you can promote this developmental spirit in your communities, instead, for example, of doing a hall in your village. Now, Lebanese immigrants, they always like to build a hall, or to make a bigger church, or a bigger mosque, or it's important. But I think that now, in most of our village, we have this kind of facilities. And I'm sorry to tell you that, they are most of the time empty. Why you don't try to encourage to spread this mentality, instead of building a hall? Why we don't do a small project, a small farm? Why they don't some cows? You know why? You know what? Now we have in the board member of this institution, Mr. Jacques Kalesi. And next year, the session next year, it will be under the name of his brother, God bless his soul, Bshara Kalesi. They have a big industry in the cheese business. If he always tell me, if any Lebanese has a farm, he is ready to buy from him his whole production, because there is a big need to buy milk. Sometimes they are obliged to import milk from abroad. So instead of Lebanese clubs and Lebanese associations doing a hall Why don't they encourage citizens to do farms? Since we have industries in Lebanon with big and urgent need for milk in Lebanon. I mean, you have to promote yourself. You are the young generation. You are well educated. And you have the goodwill. You have to promote this, this spirit, this development spirit. It's your mission. You have to promote it. Because if we stay like that, thinking, oh, we love Lebanon, we want to do big parties and spend $20,000 and to dance the whole night abroad, and then going and sleep in our homes and eating the tabbouleh, and we will fade away. We have to promote this development spirit. We have to create jobs in Lebanon. Even small projects, in Lebanon, in rural areas, each $5,000 will create one job. In Beirut, we need $15,000 to create one job. But in rural areas, each $5,000, you create one job, an investment. If you do an investment with $50,000 US, 50,000, you will create around 8 to 10 jobs. It means that you will let 8 to 10 families stay in their villages. Because, people in the villages, they don't need too much money to live there. If in Beirut you need per month $2,000, in rural areas you can stay with $500. You can have some chicken, you can plant, and if you want to enjoy, you go with your friends to the church or to the hall, you stay. They don't have a lot of expenses, but they just need a little help, a little push. Okay, I would like to have a conversation with you, please. So I would like, if you have any question or anything or any idea, because I'm here as well to get ideas from you. I'm here as well to learn from you and to learn from your experience. Please introduce yourself with your name and the country you are coming from and the association you are active with. And thank you. Okay, please.
Hello, Andre Risk, Sydney, Australia, originally from Hadith al-Jibbe. Yeah. Are there any incentives from the government for young entrepreneurs if they have a business idea or they have a concept in tourism or agriculture to set up in Lebanon? Is there any sort of incentives from the government, like government grants or any help they will help you with?
Yes, this is a very, very important question. Extremely important, because in Lebanon we have a unique fund, a very special unique fund, which is called Kafalat, which aim is to help young entrepreneurs, residents and immigrants to initiate a new, small, not really small, a new investment projects from $5,000 US up to $400,000 US. And in Lebanon, if you want to do a project, you have to make mortgage for a real estate. With Kafalat, you don't need to do any mortgage. You have just to get a creative idea. That's all what you need. You have to convince this fund, which is called Kafalat, that your idea it's smart, and Kafalat will guarantee your loan with the bank. So you will get the loan with no mortgage. You can get the loan with no interest fees, 1%, 1.5%, which is nothing, and with a grace period of up to 1 year. I mean, You take the money, if you want 50,000 US dollar, you take the money, you do the project, and once this project start to initiate money, you start paying back the money to the bank for 7 years. The paying back period is 7 years. Can you imagine? Pay back a loan in 7 years with a grace period of 1 year and with no interest fees is nothing. This is a very, very, very big opportunities you can take advantage from. You know, most of the restaurants spread on the coastal area and even in village, most of them, you ask them, how did you start? They will tell you, we started with kafalat. Actually, myself, the first project I started with kafalat.
Sean Torby, Brisbane, Australia. I'm the youth coordinator of my local church, St. Maroon's in Brisbane. What do you think is holding Lebanon back from having a small state, like a small government, that can provide opportunities for the people? I'm part of the Liberal Party in Australia. It's like it's probably it's more like right-wing conservative, and we believe in small governments. Like, I think Lebanon has an amazing opportunity because the people really create their own opportunities. The people are amazing here. They find ways to do things that I haven't seen in any other country, like bringing the printing press from we don't even know where to how did they even get? I couldn't even walk to An-Nubin. How did they get a printing press there? It's amazing. So my question is, I think there's a great opportunity for a small state which can provide opportunities for the people, because the people have an energy that is not seen anywhere else in the world. So, yeah, what do you think is holding Lebanon back from a small, strong state?
Thank you for your question. Actually, especially in Brisbane, especially in Australia, I mean, since Australia, there is a lot of immigrants. Most of municipalities in Australia, and especially in Brisbane and Sydney, 10% of the revenues of municipalities should be spent abroad in countries where immigrants came from to Australia. The Italians, they are taking, and the Chinese, they are taking a lot of benefits from this issue. Chinese, they are and Italian and Greeks, they are funding a lot of projects in their home countries through the Australian municipalities. Why we don't do the same in Lebanon? And for example, where you are coming from? Sydney. Yes, from which village? Hadas al-Jibbe, for example. Why in Hadas al-Jibbe you don't propose where to the municipality in Sydney? Why you don't propose some projects that Hadas al-Jibbe needs? And you say, since you have this 10% and you are obliged to spend it abroad, why don't you spend it in Hadas al-Jibbe? You know, actually, and especially that many municipality members, they are with Lebanese backgrounds. You know, Lebanese, they like politics. They like to show themselves and to do parties. They are good in PR. And in Brisbane, this is the same in Brisbane. In Hadas al-Jibbe, for example, you know, they had a big problem with electricity. People, they live in Beirut, they don't go a lot because they need electricity, and they had no generators. You know, the president of the municipality, the mayor, he called Hadas al-Jibbe immigrants, and he gathered money from them, and he did a pool, and he bought a generator, a big generator for Hadas al-Jibbe, environmentally friendly, and now Hadas al-Jibbe residents, they are taking advantage from generator for free. And when immigrants, they found that this project, this money went on the right hand, with the right hand, they are even now funding the fuel for these generators. I mean, I'm giving you a small example what حدث الجبة Mayor did, and what you can do for you. In Anubin, you know now Patriarchs is working a lot on how he can, I mean, make more Anubin more alive, and at the same time preserve, you know, the nature of this holy area. He has a lot of idea, and environmentally friendly idea. But these ideas, it need funds. I mean, you can help a lot with Brisbane municipalities, with Brisbane community to fund these projects. That's what you can do. Okay. Sorry, this is the last question from this side, and then we will start with this side. And I would like to hear intervention as well from girls, not only from boys.
My name is Yusef Hende.
Sorry?
My name is Yusef Hende.
Yusuf?
Hende.
Hindi.
Hindi. Here.
Hindi.
I'm from Peru, but originally from Anubin.
Anubin.
Yes, my dad was born there. In terms of commercial policies, does Lebanon has any free trade agreements with any country? Because I have seen in Peru that the economy has been growing for the past 8 or 10 years since we opened our market, and we have signed a lot of free trade agreements. And if Lebanon has these free trade agreements, is Lebanon prepared in terms of infrastructure or logistic support to start exporting or importing a lot of their products?
Where are you coming from? From which country?
Peru.
Peru. Oh, Peru. Actually, yes, we have a lot of free trade agreement with many countries. In Peru, we don't have with Peru, no. But in many European countries, in many MENA region countries, we don't have yet with the US because we have to enter with the WTO. We are not yet WTO members. I mean, you know, let me be honest with you, the problem is not with free trade agreements. You know, we have free trade agreements with many countries, and at the same time, we don't have a win-win export and import relationship with each other. I know. For example, in Australia, market need a lot and vegetables, because you know the season in Australia is different from the season in Lebanon. The reason why we are not able to export our products to Australia is some standards required, some conditions required in the packaging, in the water while watering the fruits, with the size. You know, these are some small technical issues that needs work on the ground between the Ministry of Agriculture in Lebanon and Ministry of Agriculture in Australia. You know, while in Australia we have free trade. Okay.
Hi, I'm Stefania from Mexico. I'm an entrepreneur, and my question is, Mexico. Why are young people leaving the country if there's the support from the government to create projects? Is there any initiatives that promote entrepreneur? For example, I am in charge in Mexico in creating an ecosystem of entrepreneurship, and I gather young people to create projects. And now I'm working to gather in Mexico first the community of Lebanese, and then I want to expand it. I've talked with someone to make it international. And my idea is to see what we can do here, because I think we are missing the part of putting together the minds, putting the, how you say it, the right, I forget, wait. No, the right,
In Arabic, no problem.
no. Shukran. No, I forgot the word. like mindset and actions, like
Yes,
to put
yes,
them
yes.
together in a whole
Yes,
thing.
to link them together.
Yeah, and actions and ideas to create something. Like, for example, now I'm exploring the country and I see a lot of opportunity because you have a unique landscape, a unique way of having fruits and food and so on. And now with that, what as foreigners and the people within here, what can we do? Like, for example, Mexico, we can make a trade, but we are missing that part of gathering the people in one place, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm doing in Mexico. So my question is there something going on like that in Lebanon, or is missing that part? Like universities and stuff.
Yes, yes. You know, in Lebanon we have a lot of economic and commerce institutions. And sometimes they are divided by sectors. And I think that you can be in contact with them. You have, for example, the group تجمع الصناعيين, the industrialists community. They have a very, very strong institution. And within this institution, they are divided by sectors and by region. For example, you can see the industrialists of Mount Lebanon, for example, and you can, if you want, in each sector, you have the list of all industrialists in each sector, and there is a person in charge of each one, so you can be in contact with them. You have, for example, the Lebanese Chamber and Commerce of Lebanon, which is entitled to cover all kind of commerce, all kind of business in Lebanon, and you can find a lot of small institutions on specific in specific sectors. Actually, I can advise you to be in contact with IDAL, Investment Development Agency of Lebanon, which is a public institution entrusted by the Prime Minister, President Rafik Hariri, God bless his soul. He tried a lot to overcome all this bureaucracy and all this, obstacles, and that's why he created this institution dedicated specifically to Lebanese immigrants. If they want to do a project, if they want to in specific sector, and they don't want to be in contact with Lebanese administrations and bureaucracy, and so they can go to these institutions, and IDAL will divert them to the relevant association needed. If you could please take the number or contact number from of IDAL from Madame Bustani, they could orientate you to the relevant institution directly. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Gilberto. I'm from Mexico. And you were talking about communication instruments to reconnect with the diaspora. But I think that we are only 60 people here of millions that are outside. So are there other instruments to do that? And also, we are part of the solution, but I don't think that we are the solution. What is the state doing about creating jobs? What is the Lebanese people doing to create jobs? And we visit Beirut, and Beirut is amazing, and I can say that they are doing a good job there. But we have visited other towns, and they are not improving in this way, right? So these are my two questions.
Thank you. Actually, in my own opinion, the Lebanese government is not yet doing so much for Lebanese immigration. You know, now we have an active Minister of Foreign Affairs who took charge 4 or 5 months ago. He is doing his best. He is working a lot, but you know, he cannot fill the gap of 50 years of absence of the government in Lebanese diaspora. So you know, and that's why I mentioned to you in the beginning that of the electricity, they have some urgent demands. They block the road for the whole day. You know, I don't expect the Lebanese government in the short term to take important steps to strengthen the development relationship. You know, even the right of immigrants, they are not getting the rights. If you want to register yourself now, you have to go in a whole complicated procedures that would last for years to register yourself or your parent. You have to go back to your grandfather and go down. With a difference of names, with a difference of status, etc. While all the countries, most of the countries, they have now special law to facilitate the registration of immigration. Why to go back to the ancestors and register them to arrive to you to be registered? Most of the countries now, they have specific rules. If you have anything that proves that your grandfather was Lebanese, you show this proof, you get Lebanese nationality. Only in Lebanon we have to go this very complicated procedure. And actually I think that it's related to politics. I'm sorry to tell you that it's related to politics. So, you know, when you see these basic needs for Lebanese residents and the government is not taking care of, that's why I don't expect the Lebanese government to take, you know, seriously the demand of immigrants. That's why we have to stand on our own feet. You know, Lebanese succeeded while being on their own feet without waiting for the help of anybody. That's why we are strong. You know, if somebody lives always while having everything very easily, it will not be as strong as somebody who is struggling since day one. He is fighting. That's why Lebanese immigrants abroad, they are very rich, a lot of them. They succeeded a lot, big time. Why? Because they were in Lebanon, standing on their own feet with the help of nobody. They are strong. They traveled abroad. They worked the same. They worked in Lebanon. And they did tremendous and huge success overseas. If the government is not taking its duty seriously, I mean, we shouldn't be down, because it used to be always like that. We always used to stand on our feet without expecting the help of nobody. And we did amazing results. What we need is solidarity. What we need is to love each other, is to treat each other with compassion. Because here in Lebanon, I'll tell you about Maronites. Maronites in Lebanon, they all succeed on a personal level, big time. But when you put them in a collective group, they fight. And I'm sorry to tell you that I found the same thing in diasporas, because my dad is an ambassador and I used to go with him and to visit diasporas. It's the same thing. On a personal level, excellent. Collective work, I want to be the president, I want to show myself in the picture. This is a problem. I mean, the new generation, we should try to remove this virus from our head. Who is the president? We should learn more on how to work collectively, how to treat each other with compassion. If your friend succeeded, it doesn't mean that you lose. it doesn't mean that you have to fight him. If your friend succeeded, you have to be proud that your friend succeeded. And you have to work hard to succeed the way your friend succeed. You don't have to fight him. I mean, Maronite now, in terms of politics, in terms of power in this country, we are losing a lot. We are losing a lot because we don't know how to work with each other collectively. Everybody wants to be the president. I take the last two questions. The last two questions. Okay. The young, beautiful green girl.
Hi, I'm Laila from Argentina, originally from Wadi Sit, Shuf, and I would like to know regarding to, you have mentioned on your speech, that we know that we need the economy of Lebanon improving and to promote it. I would like to know if the taxes here are related in that in any point, they motivate people to invest here, or they help, as you have mentioned, that the private companies are the one who help people and who help immigration.
Yes, Lebanon, it was always called as a tax heaven. You know, taxes in Lebanon are very low if you compare it with the other countries. For example, tax on commercial companies, it's 15%, which is a very good rate. And we have an investment law called 360. If you have an investment project with specific amount, with specific job creation, you could get a waive for paying taxes for up to 10 years, which is excellent. So in terms of tax system, Lebanon is a tax heaven. I take the last question now. Yes.
Hi, I'm Adam Yusuf from Sydney, Australia, originally from Blowser. My question is regarding refugees in Lebanon. I'm curious to know, with a lot of refugees coming from Syria, from Palestine, and probably from Iraq and those areas at the moment, how does that affect the Lebanese economy and the job opportunities for the Lebanese people, and what is the government or the Lebanese doing to fix these situations?
Yes, actually, for the time being, we have more than half of residents in Lebanon are foreigner, between Syrians and Palestinians and others. We have around 2 million residents in Lebanon as foreigners. And they are having a very negative effect on Lebanese economy. Now, if you go to supermarkets, to small shops, to all SMEs projects, you will always find the Syrian Arabic language talking to each other. And this is very bad. And unfortunately, the government is not doing a lot to help Lebanese residents to save their jobs. You know, even taxi drivers now you can find in any country of the world. Can you find a foreigner taxi driver coming from another country and working without any license, without anything? Can you find it anywhere? It's only in Lebanon. So before giving the floor to my friend Mr. Ziad Hayek, I would like to again tell you that you have to love each other. Maronite problems is that they don't love each other. You have to treat each other with compassion. When any one of you succeed, you have to all back him up. You have to be proud of his success. You don't have to be jealous from him. If anyone success, his friend should work a lot to be successful like him. And you have as well a big role about promoting this developmental spirit among diaspora. As I told you, work with municipalities. You can do a lot with municipalities. You can do a lot with club associations. Instead of building a halls, encourage them to create small projects in the villages to create jobs. Creating jobs and attracting new investments is our only solution to stop our vicious circle of immigration. And thank you.
Please move to the first ranks, please. Please move to the first ranks, please. Yalla Fadi. We have to fill the first ranks. Michelle, the first rank, please. This is not the first, Michelle. First rank, please. Ah, okay, sorry. Yalla, Pascal. Whatever you want. Yalla, Fadi. Okay. Excuse me? So never mind. We will manage. They shouldn't leave. سمر فيك تشوف إذا في حدا برا بليز بعد. So. Okay. I am really very honored and very pleased to introduce to you a big friend of the Maronite Foundation, Mr. Ziad Hayek. Mr. Ziad Hayek was appointed Secretary General of Lebanon's Higher Council for Privatization by the Council of Ministers in June 2006. He has worked on reforming the power and telecom sectors in the country and has lobbied for this enactment of public-private partnership legislation since 2007. Following the hostilities of 2006, he organized the Stockholm Donors Conference, helping to raise $940 million for war, relief, and reconstruction. Positions held previously by Mr. Hayek include Senior Managing Director of Bear Stearns in New York and London. He was President of Indosuez, Mexico, in Mexico City. He was the Vice President of Salomon Brothers in New York and was the Vice President of Citibank in New York. Mr. Hayek has a MA in International Management from the University of Texas at Dallas and has studied business administration at the Instituto Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico City. He serves and has served on a number of corporate boards in the US, Mexico, Switzerland, and Lebanon. Mr. Hayek speaks only 11 languages. Please join me to welcome Mr. Ziad Hayek.
Thank you, dear Hiam. Thank you very much. Do you hear me if I speak through this? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm an investment banker by background, but I'm not going to talk to you about investment banking today. I'm going to talk to you about something I'm passionate about, which is my hobby. And it has to do with Phoenician and Aramaic history and languages and the background of our people. What I'm going to present to you is not something that is scientifically proven. Actually, it's very difficult to go back in time and prove much. There are many theories about human evolution, about the evolution of nations, and including the controversial evolution of our part of the world. So what I'm going to present to you is the synthesis of what I have been able to gather and learn through my research. And I hope it is of interest. And for those that don't like history and languages, I am really sorry that I'm going to bore you. This is a map of the world, and by now we know that humans generated in Africa, and they migrated sometime hundreds of thousands of years ago to populate the rest of the world. Likely the first migration went, and you have to remember that these seas that exist today may have been shallower or non-existent, so these might have been land bridges in these areas. And so humans migrated likely initially all the way to Australia, where we find the Aborigines, and we find people like the Aborigines in the Andaman Islands and maybe in the southern subcontinent. The second human migration wave likely went to Central Asia, and from Central Asia across the Bering Sea into the Americas, and populated Asia, and eventually went down through the empires of China and others. A third migration would have occurred along these routes into this part of the world, which is the Caucasus. And from the Caucasus, that's the Indo-European people, they migrated east into Afghanistan and Iran and northern India, and they migrated west into Europe. Very related to the Indo-Europeans are the Semites. I say very related, of course they're not related today anymore, but they must have been, because we know we have a lot of common words between Semitic languages and Indo-European languages. For example, if I use the English language, in Lebanese Arabic or in Arabic, we say ard. Ard means land. In English, it's earth. In German, it's erde. Erde, ard, you get how close they are. If I look at the word sky, sama, they both start with an S. If I look at the word, for example, year, yarach. Yarach means, in Semitic, means the moon. Year means the year. And you're saying, what's the connection between the year and the moon? Well, time used to be counted by moons. That's why in Arabic, the word for history is tarikh. It comes from arach, which is the moon, from arrach, which is to count the moons. So if you count the moons, you get the year. So all of these things are interrelated, and the Semitic people migrated into this part of the world, which is our part of the world. this is one division of Semitic. You know, you could have, well, let me say, there are the southern Semitics from Yemen and Ethiopia. There are the eastern Semites from Mesopotamia mainly. And then these are the western Semites, and some people would even divide this into two. So you have the northwestern Semites and the western Semites. What are we talking about? I mean, here we're talking about Ethiopic and Sabaean, which is the Queen of Sheba, if you have read the Bible. Here we're talking about Arabic. Here we're talking about the Akkadian, Assyrian, Babylonian. And here we're talking about Phoenician, Hebrew, Aramaic, and this is our part of the world. We're northwestern Semites. We happen to live between two great empire-producing regions. They really are the beginning of history of mankind. One is the Nile Valley, and one is the valley of the Euphrates and the Tigris, which is called Mesopotamia. Sumer is the first known civilization, and the interaction between this valley and this valley has always happened through our land. And that's why, even though Sumer might be the oldest known civilization, Byblos is the oldest city in the world, in the sense that it is the oldest continuously inhabited city. It existed pre-civilization. It existed from Neolithic times. Oh, you're going to Byblos this afternoon? Okay, great. So I hope you enjoy it. Being at this crossroad of civilizations, because you know all interaction between the two went through here, being at this crossroads gave us an interesting history, because we ended up being fought over by everybody. Everybody wanted a piece of the bridge. Everybody wanted to control the bridge, especially that the bridge was very attractive. The bridge is very attractive for many reasons. It is attractive in beauty, but people didn't care much about beauty back in those days. They cared more about transportation, water, and there's a lot of water. There's ample transportation through the Bekaa Valley. There's plenty of arable land to plant. And importantly, Lebanon is the basket of the world of wheat. If you look at agriculture, you will find that everywhere, you know, where you have the most genetic diversity is where a certain crop or a certain species has started. So, for example, the largest biodiversity of potatoes we find in the Andes. The largest biodiversity of maize we find in Central America and Mexico. The largest biodiversity of wheat we find in Lebanon. So Lebanon, we have thousands of wheat varieties, and unfortunately we do very little to preserve that heritage, but thankfully the Norwegians have a bank of seeds in which they keep a lot of those seeds for us. It's also a land of wine, and this is where wine was. It's debated whether wine was started in Persia or in Lebanon. But we know that wine was started in one of those two areas, likely in both at different times. And the word for wine in Lebanese is the word for red. So, you know, if you're saying red, ahmar, khamar, the kha, the ha were interchangeable in Phoenician. So this is why people fought over this. In the Bible, we're called the land of milk and honey. This area is called Canaan, and Canaan is divided into the actual Canaan, which is Phoenicia and the Mediterranean side of Palestine, and Aram, which is not part of Canaan, but Aram is the neighboring region. Now, what's the difference between Canaan and Aram? Canaan means the lowlands, and Aram means the highlands. Ram is high, Canaan is low. So these are, but they're very close in terms of civilization. The difference, the main difference perhaps, is that Canaan became urbanized much earlier, so that we had cities like Byblos and Tyre and Sidon and Ugarit and Beirut. And so people settled down. And when the tribes came, the Aramean tribes and tribes from the Syrian desert came into Canaan, there was a shock. There was a shock because, you know, anybody that moves to the city has this problem with the city. They don't like the city. They think the city is too noisy. The city is corrupt. The city, you know, the people of the city have no morals. There are prostitutes in the cities. And the people from the countryside are very proud. But at the same time, the people from the countryside always want to be like the people in the city. So it's ironic. It has happened throughout history everywhere. And our part of the world is no difference. That's why the tribes that moved into Canaan, like the Hebrews, hated the Canaanites. If you read the Bible, the Canaanites are always depicted as the bad guys. You know, they have Jezebel, they have temple prostitution, they, you know, worship money and things like that. While the Hebrews are, of course, pure and they worship God, the only God, etc. The funny thing, though, is that the only God they worship, the God El, is the God of the Canaanites. Because at the end of the day, you know, they didn't have a God, and they came into the city and they found the city actually does have a God, and so they started worshiping the God of the city. And they were drawn to the city. This has caused the conflict. This is the God, depiction of the God El, and the God El is often depicted with horns because it's the bull, because it's Baal, the bull. And in the Bible, you hear of Moses, you know, chastising the Israelites for worshiping the bull. Why do they worship the bull? El is a word that in Semitic languages means the bull deer. So and why are they worshiping the bull? Because the bull has a lot of goodness in it. It's your means of survival. You get meat from it, not the bull, but cattle. Bull representing the cattle in general. You get meat, you get dairy products, milk, cheese, all those things. You can survive. There are societies like in the northern parts of Asia and Europe that survive only on reindeer. So you can actually survive on the bull. And if you're in the in nomadic, the bull for you is very important. So I'm going to skip a little bit now forward and still related to the bull, but in this case the bull is Zeus. Zeus is the greatest divinity of the Greeks. And interesting that the greatest divinity of the Greeks is also represented by a bull in this case. And Zeus comes to Tyre and he kidnaps Europe. And everywhere you see now, especially now that Europe is one and united, there are symbols of Europe everywhere. You will always find a depiction of a bull with a woman sitting on the bull, and the woman is Europe. Europe, who is Europe? Europe is a Phoenician princess. And she's the daughter of Agenor. And Zeus kidnaps her, takes her to where? To Europe. Why? Because the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, Canaanite and Phoenician, by the way, is the same thing. Phoenician is the word that the Greeks gave to the Canaanites. So the Canaanites go looking for Europe, they go to Europe. Interesting that Europe in Canaanite and in Old Greek is Araba. And that means the West. Gharb, Arab, the West. And if we go back, you will see, going forward, you will see that to the Eastern Semitics, The West was here. Arabic is put here, but Arabic was here in the Nabatean area. They call the Arabs Arabs because they're Western. Arab, they're in the West. They're the West to these people. But the West to the Phoenicians was Greece. So the word for Arab and the word for Europe is the same word. It just means West. Anyway, Europe, when Europe is kidnapped, who goes to look for her? Her brother, Cadmus. And what is Qadmo? Qadmo is the East. It means East. So this is where the East goes to the West. Okay. And there are two interesting things about Qadmo, who then founds a Greek dynasty, and you can read the Greek history and you find the Cadmean states, etc. But the two interesting things about Qadmo. One is he fought a dragon. And by fighting the dragon, he became the precursor of many stories about fighting dragons, including the most famous one of St. George. And St. George fighting the dragon, where did St. George find the dragon? Of course, where Qadmo fought the dragon, which is in Beirut. That's why we have St. George. The Bay of St. George in Beirut is the bay of initially Qadmo and the Eastern Bay, and then it became the Bay of St. George. The other interesting things about Cadmus is he is the first teacher in history. Teacher. There was nobody known as having taught anything to anybody until Cadmus. And in Mexico City, there is a statue of Cadmus teaching the Phoenician alphabet to the rest of the world, represented by a red Indian, an Asiatic, an African, etc., representing the world. Cadmus, in Herodotus, the Greek historian, Herodotus credits Cadmus with having taught the Greeks the alphabet. He took the Phoenician alphabet and gave it to them, and this is the Phoenician alphabet. It's Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Waw, Zain, etc. Each one of these letters means something because they derive from hieroglyphic. And the Phoenicians took the hieroglyphics of Egypt and they simplified them. And instead of a picture depicting the actual thing, it's the picture of a bull. Instead of it being the bull, it became Aleph. Aleph means the cattle. And in modern Lebanese, we say Alif. In Phoenician, they pronounced it Aleph. So each one then got a sound. So Aleph got the sound of A. Beit, which means house. This is a house. Beit, everybody knows Beit means house. So Aleph, Bet, Alpha, Beta, Aleph, Gamma. What is Gamma? Who knows what Gamma is? Gamma is a camel. Camel, Gamma, get it? So this is the neck of a camel. Gamma, Delta. Delta is a door. Interesting, Delta, door, they start with D, again, Indo-European, Semitic. He is she. You can see the woman's hair. Wow is something that holds something. Zain is a weapon. Het means a wall, a fence, and Te is a shield. This is Ye. Ye is Yad. It's an arm. You can see this is the here, and this is your arm. Kaf is kaf. In Lebanese, we say kaf. It's your palm. Lamed is a hook. Mim, mayim, mai. Who knows what mai means? Water. Mim, actually. It's the depiction of water. Nun is a fish. I know you're saying, how is this a fish? But here, let me show you. There are other depictions of the Phoenician. Like this is an M. You can see the water. And this is an N. And you cannot see exactly the fish, but that's what it means. Samek is also fish, but it is the backbone of the fish. Ain is eye, which became the O. Pe is the mouth. This is, you have to look at it like that. Sade is the fishing rod with a fish attached to it. Qaf is the back of your qafa, is here, your head from the back. Resh is the head from the side. Shin is your sin, is your teeth. And Tau is a sign. It's the sign. Interestingly, it is the cross. This is a sample of Phoenician writing. Here you can see how the Proto-Canaanite started with a bull, became stylized as an aleph, became the Greek alpha, and here is the water I was talking about. Here is the N. Some people, by the way, now that I see this, it reminds me to tell you that some people say Nun and Nahash. Nahash means serpent, and it's not clear whether it is Nun meaning fish or Nahash meaning the serpent. But the Egyptians certainly had it as a serpent, and the Phoenicians had it more as Nun, and etc. And this is the head, the resh with the I was telling you about, etc. And the cross. And the same way that Phoenician migrated into Greek and eventually into Latin, it migrated eastward into early Aramaic, Nabatean, and Aramaic. This is the early Aramaic, there's the later Aramaic, and then there's the early Arabic. And the early Arabic did not have any dots like you see today, a lot of dots. Phoenician alphabet influenced all alphabets in the world. Every alphabet in the world derives from the Phoenician. And even sign language derives from the Phoenician. Here's the L, here's the M, here's the O, here's the P for mouth. Of course, they took them from Latin, but it's the evolution. It's an evolution every time that we have any communication sign, we end up with something that comes from Phoenician. This is interesting. This inscription is in Brazil. And this gets me to talk to you about Phoenician exploration. The Phoenicians are the first colonizers of the world. You've heard of colonies, the British Empire, the colonies of Spain, the colonies of Portugal. Yes, but they happened much later. The earliest colonies are the Phoenician colonies. The Phoenicians colonized the world with ships like this. The known world. At the time, that was the known world. They sailed from Phoenicia to northern Africa. They created cities all along northern Africa. They conquered part of Sicily and Sardinia, the Balearic Islands, Spain. And you still find today places like Malaga. Malaga in Spain is Malaha. Malaha means the city of the sailors, of the Phoenician sailors. You will find things like, let's say, of course, Carthage. Carthage is Qart Hadash. Qart Hadash means the new city. It's the New York of the time. And it was like the New York of the time because it was the most successful city at the time. And they did not stop there. The Phoenicians conquered, they didn't conquer, but they sailed all the way to Wales. Why did they go to Wales? Anybody knows? I mean, this is like weird, right? I mean, you go all the way here. They were going after tin. And if you know about metallurgy, you will know that to make bronze, you need tin, because you mix copper with tin, and you make bronze. And the nice thing about bronze is it's strong, unlike copper. So you solidify copper by making an alloy. And where did they get the copper from? Kupros. Kupros, copper. This was a Phoenician colony in Cyprus where they used to get the copper. So the Phoenicians were the first providers of ores, both copper and tin. They sailed, we know at least from Herodotus, at least that Hanno, who was a Phoenician captain, sailed his ships from Carthage to Gabon in Africa. And he, Hanno tells in his story all the things that he has seen. Including, he describes black people and describes gorillas, and which were unknown to people in this part in the Mediterranean. So this confirms that he has actually seen, he has actually been there. The other thing that confirms that he's been there is he confirms that when he got to this place, Gabon, the sun was directly above, and it was a bit scary for them. They thought they reached the end of the world, because the sun is usually a bit low on the southern horizon when you are in the northern hemisphere. This did not stop another Phoenician expedition that went this time at the time of the pharaoh Necho II. Necho II asked the Phoenicians to explore his lands, which were here on the Red Sea, and he asked them to continue to go until they can't come back. I mean, they can't find anything farther anymore. So in the year 600 BC approximately, another captain, also called Hanno, sailed, and he circumnavigated Africa. And the reason we know he circumnavigated Africa is he states that he saw the sun on the northern horizon. So they flipped. And Ptolemy was an Alexandrian astronomer. They used to call them astrologists, but now astrologist has become palm reading, so now they call them astronomers. So Ptolemy was an astronomer based in Alexandria. He was of Phoenician origin, and he knew about all the work of Hanno, and he also measured the shadow of a stick in Alexandria and further down in Egypt. And by measuring the shadow of the stick at the same time, and confirming what Hanno had said, he found that the earth is a sphere, that the earth is round. And so the Phoenicians were the first to discover that the earth is round. Unfortunately, through the ages of darkness that came to the world after that, with the Middle Ages in Europe and with the conquests in the East, all that knowledge disappeared. And it wasn't until Christopher Columbus, almost 1,000 years later, that mankind rediscovered that the earth is a sphere and is round. Carthage was the new city, and it was so important that it rivaled Rome. And Carthage and Rome fought a war against each other, actually 3 wars. They're called the Punic Wars. And Hannibal was the most famous Carthaginian general. He took his army through Spain into the Alps, and from the Alps went and besieged Rome. Unfortunately, he left Rome after he got news that Scipio had attacked Carthage from here. And the Carthaginians, instead of defending themselves, they said, please come help us. And so he ended up returning to Carthage and lost that war because the defense was badly done. And after that, Rome became the controlling power of the Mediterranean. The Roman Empire, the Mediterranean was called Mare Nostrum by the Romans, Mare Nostrum, our sea, because they had conquered it finally from the Carthaginians. And another interesting thing, and of course after that Carthage never came back, Rome became the dominant power. Carthage's area was called Africa, and it is the land of Carthage, Africa, that gave its name to the entire continent of Africa. The other thing to mention about Carthage and Rome is that the Romans couldn't defeat the Phoenician navy. They tried and tried and tried and tried, they couldn't. Finally, they stole some ships from Sicily. And they found on the ships something very interesting. They found markings on the wood. There was engraving on the wood. And they realized that the wood, each piece was identified. So the Phoenicians also were the first people to produce in series. Before Mr. Ford started producing the T model on an assembly line, the Phoenicians had the assembly line. They, instead of sitting there and making a ship like everybody else did, they made the same piece many, many times, and then they assembled it into ships. So we have a lot to be proud of in our history, and it is very unfortunate that today most of this is forgotten, even in Lebanon. Because even in Lebanon, we have a lot of conflicts, mainly resulting from politics, that lead us to want to forget our heritage. And for many political reasons, we have to say we're Arabs, etc., which obviously we're a mixture of people. We're a mixture of Phoenicians and Arabs and Arameans and everything else. But we have to be proud of every part of us. And this is certainly a very important part of us. The Phoenicians traded olive oil. They traded murex. Murex is the dye that gives the color purple, and this is why the color purple was the color of royalty for many centuries, because the only way to make a permanent dye was using the color purple from murex. They invented glass. Very few people know that. By heating the sand on the shore, they came up with glass. Obviously, it wasn't transparent like our glass today, but it was glass nevertheless. Wine, like I said, tin and copper. And something very interesting about the Phoenicians that people don't know, they traded salt. And that's why a sailor in Semitic languages is called a mallah. Mallah means salt maker. And they're salt makers because they would, put the water of the sea, let it dry, and then make salt. Why is salt important? Salt is very important because without salt you cannot survive. And if you are living in a community where you have no access to salt, you will die and you will disappear. Only places that have salt, people could live. Timbuktu, who has heard of Timbuktu in Africa? Yeah? Good, okay. What was about Timbuktu that was important? Timbuktu was a trading post in Africa. Gold came from the south. This is the saying. Gold comes from the south, from the Gold Coast. Salt comes from the north. But wisdom only comes from Timbuktu. Why? Because they were the traders. They knew how much salt for how much gold. They were trading salt for gold. And this is what the Phoenicians were doing as well. Okay, I'm going to skip a little bit, and I'm going to go to the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire extended from Egypt and what is today Greece in the west, all the way to India, and of course Afghanistan, and even influenced parts of Central Asia. Why am I talking about the Persian Empire? Because just the same that we were talking about the Phoenicians here, the Canaanites, our neighbors here, the Arameans in Syria, the Aramean capital was Damascus, and the Aramean cities, the main Aramean cities were Homs and Hama and Aleppo and Haran. They had expanded into this area, and this area became the center of the Persian Empire. So the official language of the Persian Empire was not Persian. The official language of the Persian Empire was Aramaic. And that's why when the Persians exiled the Jews from Jerusalem to Babylon, and then the Jews came back from Babylon to Israel, they came back speaking Aramaic. Now, this is Aramaic, one style of Aramaic. And this I don't think you're going to guess what this is. This is Mongolian. And the Mongolian script came from Aramaic. This is how far the extent of our influence went to the east. These are in Hebrew characters. We could have written them in Aramaic. Well, actually, it's interesting. I was going to say in Aramaic characters, but these are Aramaic characters. It is the Hebrew language after the Hebrews came back from Babylon. Instead of using the Phoenician script, which they used to use for Old Hebrew, when they came from Babylon, they started using the Aramaean script, the Aramaic script, which today we call the Hebrew script, but actually is Aramaic. And these two sentences, this one says, Eloi, Eloi, lama shabachthani, and this one says, Talitha Qumi. And Eloi, Eloi, Ilahi, Ilahi, meaning my God, lama, why, shabachthani, why have you forsaken me? These are the words of Jesus Christ, because Jesus spoke Aramaic. And for those of you who know Lebanese a little bit, you would know the word shabak. Shabak means to throw, with some with strength. So lama shabachthani, why have you thrown me out? This is what Jesus said on the cross. And Talitha is the third one. So number 3, tlete, Talitha. It's the name for a third daughter. And Jesus said, Talitha Qumi, Qumi yani Ume. We still say it today. Ume means stand up. Of course, there are other things that Jesus had said also in Aramaic, but these are the most famous ones. This is the Aramaic script we use today. And these are also the words of Jesus Christ. And they're the exact words of Jesus Christ. And I will read them to you. And I will see if you know what they mean. Abunet bashmayo netqadash shmoch tite malkutoch nehwe subyonoch eikanot bashmayo ba'aro hablan sunqonan yawmano hablan lahmut sunqonan yawmano washbuqlan hawbain wahtuhain eikanodov hnan shbaqna alhayubain lo ta'lan nisyono elo pason min bisho matol dilo himalkuto وحيلو تشبوحته العلام علمين أمين. Who knows what this means? Yeah? That's the Our Father, exactly. I guess you guessed it. That's the Our Father in Aramaic. And now, the connection between Aramean, Aramaic, and Phoenician is, like I said, they're neighbors. And so what is it of importance to us? Well, we live on the land of the Phoenicians, and Maronites are mainly Arameans that have migrated into the land of the Phoenicians. So there's been a mixture of people from northern Syria, northwestern Syria, where Saint Maron lived, and where the initial monks that adopted the Maronite approach, Saint Maron's approach to worshiping God, were living at the monastery of Saint Maron, and when they were persecuted, they came to Lebanon. And so we have a mixture of Phoenician, which is Canaanite, of Aramean, and of Arab in later years. And this is the mixture that makes us very cosmopolitan. This is the mixture that has allowed us to be the trading bridge between Mesopotamia and Egypt, the trading bridge between East and West. This is why, famously in Lebanon, we say, Hi, Kifak, Sava. We mix 3 languages. And I'm very happy to have been here with you today. I'd love to talk to you more about it, but I think I'm running out of time. So thank you very much. Okay, I'm told I have time for questions, so if anybody wants to ask something. I know it's something that you probably haven't been exposed to, so it's all very new and you don't even know what questions to ask. But oh, I speak Arabic, French, English, Spanish, Portuguese, German, Persian, Russian, Italian, Hebrew, and Aramaic. I really think that if you have time, try to learn more about our heritage, because we do very little to be proud of it. In Lebanon, for example, we have nothing about the alphabet. I'm trying to set up a museum of the alphabet, and actually the Ministry of Culture, not the current minister, but the previous one, and the people at the ministry were not even encouraging. They were saying, we cannot help, we don't want it. And politics influences these things a lot. My point of view is if the Italians can be proud of the Romans, even though the Italians are not Romans, we Lebanese should be proud of the Phoenicians and the Aramaeans, even though we're not Phoenician or Aramaean, 100%. Genetically, it has been found, National Geographic started with AUB, it was the first genetic study to find out the origins of people, and now it has become worldwide. You can buy a kit from National Geographic, and you can take a sample of your DNA and send it to National Geographic, and they will tell you your ancestry. But this whole process started at AUB, American University of Beirut, and it was to find out where the Phoenicians are, who are the Phoenicians. And, I guess not surprisingly, we found that the Phoenicians are us.
I'm Ala Shikani from Mexico. You said this was your hobby.
Yes.
You said this was your hobby. How did you start it? Why did you get close to it?
Why did I get close to it? It's because I started with Aramaic Syriac. I used to go to church and was always wondering, what is the priest saying? I couldn't understand it. So I wanted to learn more. I started learning Syriac, eventually led me to Hebrew, which is, interestingly, Hebrew is Phoenician. Old Hebrew is Phoenician because, the Hebrews, when they migrated into Canaan, like they adopted the Canaanite god, they also adopted the Canaanite language. And I know that this is also taboo. You're not allowed to say that Hebrew is Phoenician. I mean, God. So, but it is. Old Hebrew, anyway, not the one spoken in Israel today. So I started digging. I've done a lot of research. I found interesting things. I will share maybe one thing with you, for example, through my research. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Beit it's called Beit Lahem. Beit in all Semitic languages means house. Lahem in northwestern Semitic means bread. In southern Semitic means flesh. Sorry, it means flesh. In southern Semitic, it means bread. And in Eastern Semitic, it means a magical spirit. So the concept of communion, where the bread becomes the body of Christ through the intervention of the Holy Spirit, was already in the word Beit Lahem, where Jesus was born.
Hi, I'm Stefania from Mexico. I study in Tec de Monterrey.
Fantastic, yay!
I had to say it.
Borrega?
Yes.
Excellent.
I'm impressed. I'm curious, how did you manage to learn 11 languages? Which tip would you give us? Because I love languages and I'm learning, but how 11? I would love to do that.
Well, in Lebanon, you study 3 languages to start with. The most difficult language to learn is your second language. The third becomes easier. The fourth is easier, etc., etc. The last language I learned, and I'm fluent in it, is Portuguese. I learned it in 2 weeks. Because if you know French and Spanish and Italian, Portuguese becomes very easy. You just have to learn the tricks instead of sion, or in Spanish, like attention, or in French, sion, attention, or in Italian, sione, attenzione. In Portuguese, all you have to learn is sound. So, atenção, obrigação. And then all you learn is the sound. So it becomes easier. And in my case, it's a funny story. I'll share it with you. In Lebanon, we used to go to a study hall after classes at school from 4 to 6. And so this is where you do all your homework. And the only way to get out of there is to either go to confession or to go take a language course. And I used to go to confession every day and tell the priest I lied to my mom. And one day he kicked me out and he said, I don't want you to lie to your mom anymore and I don't want to see you anymore. So I had to take a language course. And what was on offer was Armenian and German. So I picked German because the teacher was cute. And, so I learned German, and then my family migrated to Mexico during the war, and I learned Spanish in Mexico. And then my wife is Iranian of Russian origin, so I learned Farsi and Russian through her and her family, and on and on.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ziad Wahbe, Montreal, Canada. Basically, since the beginning of the trip, since last week, we've been debating, we've been discussing are Lebanese Arabs. When we present ourselves, should we say we're Arabs, we're Phoenician? And we've been having this discussion, and I think a lot of us would be interested in the answer.
It's a very important question. I tell you why it's important. It's important not because of whatever you might consider in the political discourse of Lebanon today, but it's important for our place in the world. I know from my children grew up in the US, and when they would say, are we Arabs? But we're not Arabs. We're not like those Arabs we see, in real life or in the media or etc. Are we Phoenician? But who are the Phoenicians? We don't know any Phoenicians, so how can we be Phoenicians if we're Phoenician? It's a problem because if you look at the Jewish diaspora, what keeps the Jewish diaspora together is its language and religion. So language and religion keep them together. Armenian diaspora, the same. Armenian language and Armenian religion, and the Orthodox Armenian Church, etc., keeps them together. The Lebanese, we are sort of all over. If I look at the Maronites, for example, our language is Aramaic Syriac, but we don't speak it anymore. Our religion is, we're Maronites, but we're also Catholics. So when we are in the world, we go to Catholic Church, Latin Rite. And then, so we lose our identity, both religious and linguistic. And it becomes very difficult to say who we are. Now, before I get back to that, let me say something positive. What's positive about us being, open to the world is that it becomes very easy for us to become cosmopolitan. We can go to Brazil and immediately become Brazilian and run for office. And, in Mexico, we have, there's a cabinet of Council of Ministers of 19 ministers. 6 of them are of Lebanese origin. So it's very easy to integrate. And this is something that's unique, that makes us probably the most cosmopolitan nation on earth. How do we deal with this? Going back to the issue of identity. I don't know that we can revive Aramaic as a language, although the Hebrews or the Israelis revived Hebrew even after it had been completely dead for many, many years. But we don't have that nationalistic drive in Lebanon to revive Aramaic. And I don't think we can change the direction of the church to be part of the Catholic Church. So we're not going to be able to do that. What we are going to be able to do is if we continue to encourage our children to learn more and more and more about their history and their identity. And this is actually a challenge not only for us, it's a challenge for everybody in the world today. The world is becoming a global village, and everybody is in danger. You find Islam fighting wars from the Philippines to China, to India, to the Middle East, to Nigeria. Even Trinidad and Tobago had an Islamic revolution at one point in time. And so why are the Muslims fighting all these wars? It's because they are worried about their identity. Global civilization is not a Muslim civilization. And they see themselves, disappearing, not disappearing, but they're threatened by the global civilization which is non-Muslim. The French are threatened by the Algerians. The Americans are threatened by the Hispanics. What, you're gonna teach our kids Spanish in school? Are you crazy? How will they become American? They have to learn English only. Everybody is threatened. We, the Christians in the Middle East, are threatened because we are in a sea of Muslims around us. We're worried about our own identity. Everybody in the world today is worried about their identity. And reality is, if we want to be realistic and we want to face it, is, the world is going to be nobody's identity. The world is going to be global. And we are best positioned to be global. We're best positioned to be a bridge between East and West, between Islam and Christianity, between different cultures, different ways of doing things. We are the traders par excellence. We are the unifiers of the world. That's what the Phoenicians did. Without war, without fighting, without any, there was the Punic Wars at the end, but to conquer the Mediterranean, to get to Wales, around Africa, and to Brazil, the Phoenicians did not fight anybody. They just went there with open hand, shaking hands for commerce. And you say commerce is money. Yes, commerce is money, but money and commerce is an interchange of value. I will give you something of value that I have, and I will take something of value that you have. It is this exchange of values, whether they be physical values or monetary values, or I would dare say moral and ethical and civic values, that we are best positioned to be the catalyst of this around the world. So let us not be afraid for our own identity. Let us just embrace globalization without forgetting our identity. Okay.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from São Paulo, Brazil. First, thank you for your amazing lecture and congratulations for your research.
Muito obrigado.
De nada. I'd like to know more about this genetic tracing technique. How can I say this part of the DNA is Phoenician or not Phoenician?
Okay. There are, let me see if I have something here. Maybe I don't know if I have it. No, I don't have it, but let me, if you take the genome and you sequence it, and by the way, can I take more of your time before I answer your question, because this is very interesting. You guys should know this, okay? The genome is something amazing. It determines who each one of us is, and it determines who all of us are at the same time. And it was discovered in the 70s, in the early 70s. And at the time, they said, we will never be able to break it down. You've seen the sequences, C, G, T, A, etc. Okay, they said, we'll never be able to break it down. In 1990, they said, yes, we will be able to, but it's going to take us, almost 150 years to do it. By the late 90s, we were able to sequence the first genome, and it cost almost $1 billion. Today, it costs $1,000 to sequence a human genome. And it is expected that within about 2 years' time, it will cost $100 to sequence your genome. So everybody will be able to sequence their genome. Okay? And once you sequence your genome, you will know exactly what hereditary aspects you have, therefore what illnesses that might be hereditary might affect you. At the same time, there are nanotechnologies that are being developed where you have these little machines that can go and work at the cell level. And you have computer IT technology that is enabling us to sequence and to understand all the variables that are in biology. All these improvements are happening as we speak. And it is expected that within a few years, literally like within the next 20 years, mankind will be able to live up to 200 years. Somebody being born at that, about 20 years from now, would have a chance of living 200 years. Already in our own historic time frame, from the 18th century until now, we have raised the median age, the life expectancy, I should say, from about 46, 47 years to almost 80 years today. So we've almost doubled our life, and we're going within 20 years to double it again. The world is just amazing. And you guys are I envy you because you're younger than I am. So you're going to be able to take advantage of these things. So sorry for the diversion. But to go back to the genome. So there are certain characteristics that are related to your chromosomes, and we can link back to find out on the mother's side where we come from. And this is how they determined, not through archaeology, but through DNA research, that mankind comes from Africa. And is there an actual Eve? Unlikely, but maybe a group of people, maybe a tribe that was the actual Eve. And we're all related to that tribe somehow. So you can find out what your certain markers that determine certain subgroups. As this line is dividing, you can find the branches where it divides. And there is a line that divides the people, actually, interestingly, the people on the Lebanese coast from the people in Syria and the hinterland. And you can say it's the Canaanite-Aramaic divide. I forget the names of the markers. It's either L1 and L2 or R1 and R2, but they have that signature in their DNA, and they determined that by determining at each stage what the marker is, you can go back up in history and you can find out, for example, you're Brazilian, you come from Lebanon, you are of Phoenician or Aramaic background, then you are of maybe South Arabian background or Ethiopic, or you're of Egyptian background, and that's how they do it. But I'm not a scientist to explain it very well.
Thank you very much for the lecture. My question is about all these sciences that the Phoenicians had concerning architecture. They had to be very good in architecture to make such boats that could travel in the whole world, and languages, trading, business. What is stopping us from continuing all these sciences? Even in the 16th, 17th century, we have stories about all the Maronites who have studied in Europe and were very great at what they did. And during the 20th century, all the Arabic languages that the Lebanese had a great hand in working with the Arabic language. What is stopping us from continuing this job? Why the evolution is not in this part of the world anymore?
It's a good question. I think it has a lot to do with research. The world, the Phoenicians invented these things because they were exposed to different cultures, and they were able to synthesize in a very rudimentary way information from here, information from there, and bring it together. Today, the world is very complex, and science has moved on, and every field, actually, that you look at has moved on. So it's no longer just easily obtainable by pure observation. Now, actual research and study has to take place. Our universities in Lebanon lag way behind in research, and I think you know that being involved in academia yourself. Unfortunately, our best university, considered to be best university in Lebanon, doesn't even rank in the top 500 best universities in the world. And the reason for that is lack of research. How can we improve on it is by dedicating funds to research, but that is something governments usually do. Unfortunately, being in the government, I have to say that we don't have any funds for research. No politician in Lebanon thinks about research. No politician thinks about job creation, which was something you were talking about earlier. We have a huge deficit in our political class. Our political class is, there's a word in English, there's an expression, it's called navel gazing. You're navel, and gazing is when you look at it. You're navel gazing, you're always looking at yourself. This is what our politicians do. They're always navel gazing. They go from one election debate to another election debate, but between the election debates, there's never anything about what are we going to do for the people. But let me not go into that tangent, just to say that I think we need more research money that will allow us to create better minds. The Lebanese leave Lebanon, young Lebanese people leave Lebanon, and they go to study abroad, and we find them succeeding tremendously. I mean, have you guys heard of the brick, for example, the Apple brick? It gives you 3D sound, so that it comes from one side, but you hear the sound in 3D. It's amazing, and it's a Lebanese guy that invented it. Just being able to live abroad and research abroad, and many other examples.
I'm sorry to ask this question at the same time. Okay. Is there any event in the history, like if you study history and you feel this continuous line of evolution in the East, and then you feel that there is something that happened where we lost everything? Is there any event or accident, or we just lost everything in some time, in a duration of time, we lost everything, and the world is not here anymore, it's elsewhere? Does it have anything to do with religion? Does it have anything to do with languages? For example, in Arabic, the language is not evolving anymore. We need to get words from other languages to express ourselves. Computer, you don't have anything in Arabic for computer. Even the Arabic word that they use doesn't express the word computer. It's about calculating, hasub, nothing to do with computer. Does language, because you have spoken about the religion and the language concerning the Jews, for example, are these two elements the elements that stop the evolution in the East?
I think you put your finger on a very, very, probably the most important reason. If we talk, outside science, if we talk in general of civilization, of why we are not being able to accompany world civilization in a better way in this part of the world, you put your finger on the two main reasons. I mean, on the one hand, religious fanaticism that the Arab world, if you go to an Arab book fair, you will find that 90% of the books are about religion, in this case Islamic religion, unfortunately. Not unfortunately that it's about Islam, but unfortunately that they are about religion, 90%. And 10% are about other subjects. So if people reading only in Arabic, if people don't know other languages, most of what's available to them are religious books. Religious books are not preparing youth for the 21st century. The entire Arab world publishes less books per year than are published in Spain alone. So actually they publish almost as many books as Greece. And Greece is a small country. And this is the Arab world. So there's no publishing, there's no research, there's no, and language plays an important role as well, as you well said. Thank you for pointing it out. Language needs to be alive, and Arabic is not a language that's alive. Fanaticism has caused the Arabs to lose the life of their language. I explain. Europe in the Middle Ages used to have Latin. All the books had to be written in Latin. All the speeches had to be made in Latin. But people spoke Italian and they spoke French and Catalan and whatever, Portuguese, etc. Nobody spoke Latin. And that's why they couldn't advance. They couldn't advance because they didn't understand these books. Very few people could read the books. Only certain monks could read the books. So the people were not participating in creating civilization because they cannot read. The Arab world is the same. The people are not participating in creating civilization because nobody speaks Arabic. Arabic is a dead language. Arabic to the world today is like Latin to Europe in the Middle Ages. And we speak Lebanese and Egyptian and Algerian and Moroccan and Saudi, and yet we don't recognize these languages as languages that are alive. We say, oh, they're only dialects. Because we're afraid of losing that commonality that gives us as Arabs. And so, for political reasons. And so, because we're afraid, neither Arabic is developing, nor are languages we're spending time and effort and to develop. And so we're ending up in this part of the world in a linguistic desert where actually English is fast becoming the way to communicate between even the Arabs. When I left, I was away from Lebanon for 30 years, and when I came back to work in the Lebanese government, I thought I would have to speak Arabic. And I was so surprised that all the meetings we were having were in English. It's among Lebanese in Lebanon, and we're speaking in English because the Arabic language was just not good enough for us to be able to discuss any policy matters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are going to do the evaluation of the trip today for you to have more time tomorrow to prepare yourselves, okay?
We'll discuss about this afternoon too, the program of this afternoon.